Maybe you've already done some drafts for 2024, best ball. Maybe you looked at some rankings. Whatever the case is, I guarantee you're way too low on these players. If you're ready to start drafting right now, you actually don't have to wait. Get on Underdog and do a best ball draft. They have tournaments open right now where you can draft and take advantage of those pre-NFL draft values on rookies, free agents, and more. Get in there right now. You can download the Underdog Fantasy app or click on the link in the description. Just make sure if you're signing up for the very first time on Underdog, use promo code NGAME because that gets you a 100% deposit match up to $100. We're going to go through 10 players should be ranked higher than you believe, and we're going to tell you why. So let's start out. Who's the first person you think that just going too low in drafts?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Pierre. You've played fantasy football a long time, just like me. When is the last time a running back finished top 5 in fantasy and he was actually young? He's the established, lead workhorse back in the offense. And his situation is exactly the same. And then going into next year, people were like, nah, I don't really want to draft him. Like, when is the last time that's ever happened?
That never happens. Running backs are always flying off the board earlier than they should go.
Well, it's happening this year because for some reason, nobody wants to draft Rachaad White. Why don't you want to draft Rachaad White? He was a top 5 running back last year. He got all the work in this offense. He's still young. He's healthy. He catches a ton of passes. Baker Mayfield's back. It's basically the same exact offense. The only difference here is the OC is gone, but do we think like a new OC is going to come in and just completely eliminate Rachaad White from the game plan? And for all that talk of Todd Bowles, yeah, we're going to get him some help. They did nothing in free agency. All they did was re-sign Chase Edmonds, who barely touched the ball for this team last year. Unless they do something crazy like draft an early running back, which I highly doubt, Rachaad White is going to be a workhorse running back again, and he's being drafted as the RB12. That is like his floor if he stays healthy. The only way he's not a top 12 running back next year is if he's hurt. I don't know how he's going this late after what he did last year. I will happily draft Rachaad White as my RB1 in a semi-zero RB draft or in any draft, really.
Well, funny enough, I have an almost identical situation in a player who's being drafted right behind Rachaad White, and that's James Cook in Buffalo. Same thing. These guys have almost identical ADP. Nothing has changed in Buffalo. They did not add anybody in terms of running back help to back him up to split time. Nothing. They brought back Ty Johnson. Does that matter to you? No. It's going to be James Cook as the lead back. The most important thing when evaluating James Cook is you have to look at second half stats after the offensive coordinator change. Once Joe Brady took over, he averaged 104.3 total yards per game. That was a bump of almost 20 yards per game from beforehand. He's going to be the lead rusher. He's going to be involved in the passing game. Yes, he will score some touchdowns. And really, this offense is going to be just like it was down the stretch. James Cook is going to be a low-end RB1, but he's being drafted way too late. All right, let's switch to receiver. Who's a player you think is going way too late?
I think rookie Rome Odunze is going way too late. And if you watched our, the only wide receivers you need to draft video, then you'll understand why. But if you didn't, it's basically because I don't understand why he's going so much later than Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. People are okay drafting Harrison Jr. in the second, Malik Neighbors in the third, but then Rome Odunze falls to the 5th round outside the top 50. I don't understand why. He's just as good, if not a better prospect than Malik Neighbors, and he's right there with Marvin Harrison Jr. And in fact, Matt Harmon of Reception Perception, who we've had on the show, we talk about it all the time, all he really does is chart wide receivers and watch film on these guys over and over. He had this to say about Rome Odunze. He said, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jamar Chase, and Rome Odunze are the top 3 prospects I have charted for Reception Perception between the 2021 and 2024 classes. By the time I'm ready to settle the rankings, he very well may end up the top prospect on the board. So he's saying he might actually rank him ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jamar Chase as a prospect, and he's being forgotten in drafts. No one talks about this guy. He's going outside the top 50. Now, obviously, landing spot is going to matter if he lands somewhere bad like the Giants or something. That's going to hurt his draft stock. But that's the same thing can be said for Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. So for me, getting Rome Odunze, this much later than the other 2 top rookie wide receivers, I'm taking that every time. I think he's a value right now. This is the time to grab him before he lands somewhere good and he shoots way up draft boards.
All right, not a rookie, but still young, talented receiver who I just can't quit. George Pickens, It's funny because last year, a lot of people were laughing and saying the situation matters. George Pickens was a wasted pick until the very end of the season. He basically won people leagues single-handedly with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Regardless of what you think of Russ, whether he's cooked or not, and whether you think Justin Fields should be a starting quarterback or not, I think we can all say objectively that it is going to be a quarterback upgrade from either one of those guys over the trio of Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. Russ can still sling it deep. Justin Fields can definitely sling it deep. Remember, DJ Moore is coming off his career season with Justin Fields at quarterback. And Cortland Sutton, who was the number one receiver in Denver, had 10 touchdowns, 13 yards catch with Russ, had some nice games. Well, George Pickens, by the way, he is the number one receiver now in Pittsburgh because Deontay Johnson is gone. They're going to revamp this offense, and before you bring up the name of Arthur Smith, just remember who he's replacing. The only man I think we can all agree might be worse as a play caller was Matt Canada. At least he's gone. So yeah, I'm still in on George Pickens. A lot of people will fade him because of the Arthur Smith factor, the quarterback situation, and just remember, he's in a better situation this year. All right, a lot of QBs get drafted early, but there's still some great value to be had late.
Yeah, and to me, Kyler Murray might be the biggest value in all of fantasy football right now, but certainly the biggest value at the quarterback position. Every year of his career, when you look at it on a points per game basis, because obviously he's missed some games, he's finished as a top 10 or better QB every year, and he's been top 7 3 of his 5 years. The only years he wasn't inside the top 7 was last year, coming off ACL, and his rookie year. I talked about, Marvin Harrison. It sounds like all reports are the Cardinals are going Marvin Harrison with the number 4 pick, so he's going to get a generational elite wide receiver 1. The defense, even though they're going to try to improve it, is probably still going to be bad. They're going to ask Kyler Murray to do everything. He ran really effectively last year, considering he was coming off ACL. Now 2 years removed, should be fully healthy. And right now on Underdog, he's going as a QB 10, which, I just said he's been a top 10 QB pretty much every year in a points per game basis. And in the mock drafts we've been doing, he's like one of the last picks. Like, you just wait till the last round and grab Kyler Murray as your QB1. If you do that in your fantasy drafts this year, if you can get Kyler Murray as your QB1 very late in your drafts, you're going to have a massive advantage over the rest of your league. People are just worried about this guy because he's, been hurt and gets this like label of being overrated and like cares about playing video games more than football or whatever. I think we see Kyler Murray have a huge year this year. I think he could potentially be top 5 at the QB position.
Look, if Arizona does as expected and add Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft, that offense will be dynamic. So I'm going to stay in Arizona, and I'm going to talk about a running back who's still being undervalued. It's James Conner. You go through the draft and you feel like people are forgetting about Arizona overall because, yeah, sure, it was a disappointing season. Not a very exciting offense. But here's the thing with Conner. He's the last of the bell cows being drafted. He's going around pick 82 on average in underdog drafts. He's the workhorse, and there's no threat to his workload because they didn't do anything, again, in free agency. I guess Michael Carter's the backup. There's no really threat there. James Conner ran for 1,000 yards last year, and he did it in only 13 games. He carried the ball 208 times. Look, over a full season, he might have been right up there with the league leaders in carries, and he averaged 5 yards per carry, so could have had even better numbers. So Conner is a guy that you can just kind of set and forget. No, he's not the young, exciting running back you're looking for to break out, but he's going to be a solid player who gets you numbers, and he's available that late. Yeah, I don't know why. All right, time to talk tight end, finally. Who do you think is going under the radar?
I think Jake Ferguson is going way under the radar. Last year he finished as a tight end 9. Now he's being drafted as the tight end 11. Like, I get it. Okay, it's, whatever. There's other tight ends that people like. Like Trey McBride, Sam Laporta have entered the mix, Dalton Kincaid, some of these younger tight ends. But you got to draft those guys much earlier. Jake Ferguson is a tight end. You can essentially punt the tight end position, wait till one of your last picks, after round 10, and just grab Jake Ferguson. And he was great last year. Yes, he was kind of up and down. He was kind of volatile, but it really feels like he should have been a lot better. He only had 5 touchdowns last year, but he was 3rd among all players in red zone targets. The opportunity was there. They just didn't connect. That could change this year for sure. He could be a guy that could have 8 to 10 touchdowns in this offense. And what have the Cowboys done? Despite Jerry Jones saying, yeah, we're all in, they've done basically nothing. Tony Pollard is gone. Michael Gallup is gone. If anything, there's more opportunity for Jake Ferguson here. They're running back the same coaches, at least on offense. They're running back the same offense. Everything's going to be the same. Jake Ferguson will probably be, the number 2 or 2B target guy with Brandon Cooks more than likely in this offense. Touchdown upside every single week. If I don't get one of those, early tight ends, I'll just punt and wait and take Jake Ferguson.
Well, I'm going to copy what you said and apply it to another tight end, and that's Evan Ingram in Jacksonville. He basically is going to be the number 2 guy there. Ridley's gone, Christian Kirk, solid. And then Ingram really has taken over, which is why he finished as the number 3 tight end in terms of receiving yardage last year. He was the tight end 6 in terms of fantasy points. And yet he's not being drafted that way. He's available late, almost an afterthought. You're like, yeah, I guess I'll settle for Ingram. Why can't he put up better numbers this year with less competition for targets? I absolutely think he can and should. He's kind of developed into Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket. And when you think about fantasy points, Evan Ingram did it basically with that yardage and those receptions because he only scored 4 touchdowns. What if those numbers go up too? We could see a top 5 tight end finish from a guy who's being drafted barely as a starter at the position. So I think people are still too low on Ingram because, again, this guy who's almost turning 30, not one of these young upcoming names. But, sometimes younger doesn't necessarily mean better. All right, now time for some bounce back candidates. Who's a name that you feel is almost forgotten in drafts?
Javonte Williams is being forgotten in drafts, being drafted as RB29, barely inside the top 100 running backs. He's just another one of these running backs who, first year off ACL wasn't very good and now everybody's given up on him. But you look at him as a rookie a few years ago, he was 17th in targets and 6th in evaded tackles, despite splitting with Melvin Gordon. Then in year 2, before he tore his ACL, he was once again one of the leaders in evaded tackles, and he was averaging 5.5 targets per game. Last year, coming off ACL, 17th in targets. Unfortunately, he was like 25th or 26th, I think, in evaded tackles. But hey, he had an ACL. He was coming off ACL. These guys struggle coming off ACL. Now he's 2 years removed. He's going to be fully healthy. This is a good prospect. This is a good player. He just needs to be healthy. It looks like he's finally healthy going into the season. This offense almost certainly has to get better. Year 2 under Sean Payton. Are they going to draft a quarterback? Are they going to pull off a trade? Something to get a QB? I'm going to believe in this offense. I'm going to believe in the talent of Javonte Williams. I'm going to take the 2-year post-ACL discount when guys usually rebound, and I'm drafting Javonte Williams this year. Finally, we see the Javonte Williams we've been waiting for.
Well, one offense that pretty much has to get better because it can't get worse is the Carolina Panthers. And I'll say this, whether you feel like Bryce Young is the real deal or not, it's got to get better, and it will because they finally got himself a number 1 receiver, and that's Deontay Johnson. You might think, is he really a number 1 receiver? Well, if you look at reception perception from Matt Harmon, look at Deontay Johnson's chart. It is all green, and I mean all green. He is actually an elite route runner. Just imagine what he could do with a real quarterback. Once upon a time, he had a guy named Ben Roethlisberger, and what happened? He was a really good receiver who put up fantasy numbers. I think he can get, close to that. Of course, I'm not comparing Bryce Young to Big Ben, but I do feel like Bryce Young just needs some time, needs some real coaching. He needs a guy he can trust and get the ball to who isn't just Adam Thielen. Deontay Johnson is going to be a target magnet in this offense. So, again, people are going to look at him in a Panthers uniform and get turned off. I'm going to say he's going to be massively undervalued. Right now, he's being drafted as wide receiver 43, behind guys like DeAndre Hopkins. I think that I'll take that discount and I'll draft him far earlier. Those 10 players are massive values in early drafts. You want to know who your top 10 must-have players, though? Guys you definitely want, you got to check this out.